The Galactic Council had watched humanity for centuries, observing, judging, and waiting. Earth was a backwater to them, a savage rock spinning around a yellow sun with a history soaked in war, pride, and rebellion. To the Council, humanity was a mistake, a species that should have died out after its Third World War. Instead, we thrived. We advanced. We grew teeth. And we never learned how to bow. The threat came in the form of a message, broadcast across every major channel in every language, with a timestamp countdown and a seal from the Galactic High Core. Humanity has failed the trials of peace. You have 3 cycles to submit or face correction. Correction. That word boiled the blood of every man on Earth who still remembered what it meant to fight back. It wasn't the first time a species was corrected. The Zenari once resisted and now live as husks, genetically neutered and bound in permanent servitude. The Council didn't invade, they erased. But Earth wasn't the Zenari, and we didn't negotiate with overlords. I remember sitting in the underground command bunker when the broadcast hit. I was the 3rd officer on rotation, monitoring low-frequency alien channels for encoded threats. The second I saw the Council seal flicker on screen, my stomach dropped. The Supreme Strategist came down within the hour. No media, no cameras, just steel eyes and a mouth that spoke like a man ready for a funeral. "We're not submitting," he said. "Prep Omega Protocol." The room fell silent. Omega Protocol was Earth's doomsday play, the response we swore never to use unless extinction was guaranteed. It meant absolute retaliation. It meant pulling the trigger before the Council got close. It meant war, not survival. Dominance! We launched black site mobilization within 24 hours. Deep space listening posts reactivated, sleeper satellites turned inward, and every off-world colony went dark. Earth became a quiet beast in the dark, its eyes shut but claws ready. They didn't expect us to answer so fast. The Council's scout ships arrived on day 3, hovering above lunar orbit like they owned it. Elegant vessels, silver curves and blue cores, radiating arrogance. They didn't send diplomats or drones, just an open channel with the message, "You still have time to surrender. This is your final cycle." We sent a reply. 4 words. "Come and try us." And just like that, the veil dropped. Earth stopped pretending to be afraid. They thought they knew what we had. They assumed we were still decades behind. What they didn't know, what we never broadcast, was that Earth had been preparing for this moment since the first alien ship was spotted 70 years ago. Everything we developed in secret, everything we reverse-engineered, every battle simulation, every psychic interface, every gravity disruptor. It was all real, hidden, and waiting. I was assigned to the Dauntless, the first Dreadnought-class warship powered by a core made from an unstable neutronium lattice. It could fold space in 6 directions. We called it God's fist behind closed doors, and I was her gunner. We didn't wait for them to fire first. That's what made the Council arrogant. They believed in rules, in structure, in diplomacy. We believed in ending threats before they started. The first shot Earth fired wasn't a beam. It wasn't a missile. It was a code injection. A virus built to collapse Council navigation arrays across every active fleet. In a single second, half their fleet blinked off the map. And then the Dauntless leapt through folded space, straight into the heart of their formation. The first impact came with no warning, just a flash of light and a Council ship rupturing into dust. I still remember the cheer that went up from the bridge crew. I didn't cheer. I knew this wasn't victory. It was just the first punch. I looked into the void and saw ships moving, dozens of them, waking up, targeting us. The Council's retaliation was fast, but Earth was faster. And we were just getting started. We didn't expect to survive the first engagement. That wasn't the point. The Dauntless wasn't built for survival. It was built for message delivery. and that message was clear. Earth was not afraid. Our goal wasn't to win that first battle. It was to bloody the Galactic Council's nose so badly they'd never forget the taste of defeat. We gave them that. Their formation collapsed in chaos the moment our neutronium cores destabilized their shielding protocols. One by one, their cruisers spiraled out of formation, some exploding under pressure, others falling into their own gravitational wells. We carved through them like a wolf in a flock of peacocks. But it didn't last. The Council adapted fast, too fast. Their flagship, a grotesque spire-shaped monstrosity called Elan Ver, emerged from slipspace with a fleet of shielded dreadships, bigger, meaner, and decades ahead of what we thought they had. Apparently, we weren't the only ones hiding our teeth. Our captain gave the order, retreat to fallback coordinates. But the Dauntless didn't move. Our fold drive was fried, leaking energy like blood from a gut wound. We were stuck. I looked around the bridge and saw men staring death in the face, calm, cold, ready. No one begged, no one cried. They just began their tasks, weapons charged, systems rerouted, hands steady. That's the kind of men Earth made after the threat. And then something unexpected happened. A second Earth ship dropped in. The Vindicator. Smaller, faster, and loaded with experimental cloaking systems. I didn't even know we had another dreadnought ready. No one did. But she didn't open comms. She didn't wait for permission. She slammed into the side of the Elan Ver in a suicide run. The explosion cracked the void. My console shook so hard I thought we'd been hit directly. But when the light faded and the smoke cleared, Elan Ver was fractured, bleeding plasma and rotational debris. Their command was in shambles. The fleet began to pull back, disoriented. The Vindicator's crew knew they wouldn't come back. They bought us 5 precious minutes. 5 minutes was all I needed. I activated Dreadfire Protocol, a failsafe no one on board had clearance for but me. It was locked behind a retinal scan, DNA verification, and a voice code so secret I'd memorized it under threat of termination. Not discharge. Termination. It accessed Earth's oldest, darkest invention. Project Helix. The screen turned red. My hands moved faster than I thought possible. My breath was gone. My heart felt like a jackhammer in my ribs. But I got it online. The moment I activated Helix, I felt something crawl into my mind. It wasn't a weapon. Not really. It was a consciousness. A relic from Earth's forgotten war, a hybrid intelligence built from the minds of our greatest generals, criminals, and tacticians. They called it the Ghost Choir. It had been locked away for decades, buried under planetary ice in Antarctica. Too dangerous, too unpredictable. But now, it was what we needed. The Ghost Choir spoke in fractured words, disjointed and eerie, like 1,000 voices whispering through my skull. You called us. You bled. We awaken. I pointed to the fleet on screen. Burn them! I whispered. Burn them all! And they did. Helix fired a signal deep into our old mining colonies on Mars, awakening dormant satellite weapons, those that had never been acknowledged, never officially existed. Kinetic rods, orbital singularity bombs, EMP dispersers that fried starships from thousands of kilometers away. The sky above lunar orbit turned into hell's theater. Fire, steel, shattered hulls, and flickering shields screamed through space. The Galactic Council had never seen Earth's wrath. This wasn't survival anymore. This was genocide. They tried to call a truce. They opened comms on all bands, screaming in their highborn dialects for ceasefire, offering peace, offering terms. We didn't answer. The captain stood beside me, jaw tight. You think this is enough? I shook my head. Number, it's not. He leaned closer. Then what do we do? I looked him in the eye, cold and calm. We hit them where it hurts. We take the war to them. His face didn't change, just a small nod. Then he barked the order. Set course for the galactic core. The room fell silent. We were no longer defending Earth. We were going to burn the Council's homeworld. The jump to the galactic core wasn't just suicide, it was sacrilege. The core was supposed to be untouchable, shielded by gravitational folds, guarded by a fleet so massive its orbit alone could eclipse a star. No species had ever approached it without being atomized mid-jump. It was the holy ground of the Council, their throne, their vault, their pride. And we were about to piss on it. It took 6 days to calibrate the fold jump. 6 days where we lived in silence aboard the Dauntless, watching the stars burn behind us, while our engineers worked like lunatics, jury-rigging damaged systems with leftover debris and black market scrap from Mars colonies. I didn't sleep. None of us did. We didn't need to. The rage kept us awake. Word spread fast. Earth's resistance was no longer a secret. Colonies once afraid to speak began broadcasting support. Encrypted bursts came from mining outposts, rogue stations, even deep space prison fleets. They all said the same thing. Make them pay. And for the first time in centuries, Earth wasn't alone. On the 6th day, the fold drive screamed back to life. I stood at my gunnery post, helmet sealed, neural sync active. I could feel the Dauntless like a second body. Her pulse in my head, her engines in my gut. The warship wasn't a ship anymore, she was a weapon. And I was her trigger. We folded into the galactic core like a knife through skin. They couldn't coordinate, they couldn't fire. And we opened hell. I launched the first payload manually, a triple-core burst of plasma rail torpedoes straight into the primary relay of their central orbiting defense ring. It shattered like glass. Pieces rained down toward the core planet's surface, igniting in the atmosphere like falling gods. The Council didn't understand. They still thought this was war. But this wasn't war anymore. This was retribution. Their fleet swarmed, finally untangled from Helix's chaos. Hundreds of ships descended on us, sleek, glowing beasts with sentient shields and particle cannons that could melt continents. And they still weren't enough, because Earth didn't come with one ship. We came with 12. Each dreadnought burst from folded space, fanned out like angels of vengeance. The Ravager, the Fury, the Iron Soul, the Gallows, all armed, all hungry. And they didn't fire first. We did. The core skies erupted, flames, gravity implosions, collapsing matter. Their defense line tried to stabilize, but Earth's fleet had no formation, no protocol. We fought like the chaos they feared us for. Individually reckless, collectively unstoppable. One by one their ships exploded. Then the voice came, not from their fleet, not from a diplomat. It came from the Council itself. A direct broadcast from the Chamber of Judgment. 12 beings who'd ruled the galaxy for over 10,000 years, speaking as one voice. You are the disease. We tried to cleanse you. You force our hand. They unleashed the Ascendants. I'd only heard rumors. Biomechanical war beasts kept in stasis, designed to decimate entire planets when diplomacy failed. Living weapons. Half machine. Half madness. 4 of them. Each the size of a city. Each glowing with energy so ancient it bent light. They didn't fire guns. They were the guns. One of them looked like a floating cathedral with tendrils of molten plasma. Another resembled a spider of steel and thunder, its limbs tearing through space-time. We targeted one. It took everything we had. 3 ships were lost in the first hour, ripped open like paper. The Iron Soul rammed one of the Ascendants in a suicide strike, just to expose its core long enough for us to hit it with a Helix-powered rail charge. It screamed. It screamed like something that remembered dying before. But it died. The other 3 kept coming. I'll never forget the moment I saw one of them reach toward Earth's blue projection on the Dauntless screen and whisper through the void, "Your world will kneel. Your skies will be ash." And still, My finger didn't leave the trigger, because we weren't done yet. We hadn't reached the surface. And on the surface of the Council's homeworld, there were secrets. Old ones, human ones. The truth came from the ground. We broke through the final orbital line after losing half our fleet. The Gallows was gone, cut in half by an Ascendant's antimatter scythe. The Ravager detonated her own core to collapse one of their last planetary cannons. We were bleeding ships and men, and the Dauntless had taken a hit so deep I felt her heart skip in my neural link. But we made it. We descended through the Council's atmosphere like falling judgment, our black hulls glowing red, slicing through skies that had never known war. The cities below weren't cities at all. They were temples, spires of crystal and light stretching into the clouds, orbiting structures like ancient altars. We touched down outside the Sanctum of Origin, the place the Council claimed was the beginning of their rule, their sacred ground. They didn't try to stop us. No soldiers waited, no cannons fired, just silence, like the calm before a truth you don't want to hear. We breached the outer walls with charge cutters. What we found inside stopped every man in his tracks. The chamber was filled with statues, humans, not just one or two, hundreds, thousands, lifelike, cast in stone, some frozen mid-scream, some kneeling, some holding weapons, all wearing ancient Earth military gear, old UNF patches, Earth flags we hadn't used in 100 years. At the center of the sanctum stood a giant obsidian monument, inscribed in a language none of the Council ever taught or broadcast. But I could read it, because it was English, etched in weathered letters, to those who rose from Earth and conquered the stars. My breath caught in my throat. It didn't make sense. We weren't conquerors, we were late to the galactic stage, barely scraping orbit when the Council was already terraforming moons, right? One of our linguists, an old vet named Cole, dropped to his knees and started sobbing. He was staring at one of the statues. I walked closer. It was his father. Same eyes, same scar above the brow, same insignia. But he died during the Mars uprising. Cole whispered, shaking. He was never found. They told us. They lied, I said quietly, because now the pieces were falling into place. The Council hadn't found us. They'd created us. Earth wasn't some primitive world on the edge of the galaxy. It was a prison planet, a breeding ground, a forgotten experiment. And somewhere in the past, we'd broken free. That's why they feared us. That's why they tried to correct us. Because the last time we left Earth, we didn't just visit the stars, we burned them. I walked deeper into the sanctum and found the final truth. A vault sealed with a biometric lock, human-coded. I pressed my hand against it. The door opened. Inside was a cryo chamber filled with stasis pods, dozens, maybe more, old, dust-covered, still active, and in each pod a human soldier, perfectly preserved, not aliens, not hybrids, earthborn, pure. The files etched into the wall revealed their names, their ranks, their origin, Project Helix, Phase 1. Year, 2329. We weren't fighting for survival. We were fighting to remember who we used to be. The ghost choir spoke through my neural feed again, quieter now, reverent. They buried us to erase us, but memory is a weapon. One of the pods hissed open. The soldier inside fell into my arms, eyes blinking, breath stuttering like a man dragged out of death. He looked at me, confused. What year is it? 3041, I said. His face darkened. Then they failed. He pointed behind me. Take the rest. Wake them. Finish it. And just like that, the war changed. We weren't underdogs anymore. We were the original threat. And we were back. We woke 22 of them in the first hour. Some screamed when the light hit their eyes, clutching at invisible weapons, memories of battles no one alive remembered. Others opened their eyes like they'd never been asleep at all, steady, cold, and already calculating. They moved with purpose, with training I couldn't even comprehend. These weren't just elite soldiers. They were Earth's last kings of war. One of them, tall, scarred across the jaw like something had tried to rip his face clean off, stepped forward and stared at the screen displaying the Council's homeworld. His voice was dry, cracked from cryo, but hard. "Who's in charge here?" I stepped forward. "No one's in charge," I said. "We're just trying to survive." He looked at me like I was an idiot. "Wrong answer." Another soldier, a woman with burn marks seared down her neck and black veins from old cybernetic enhancements, approached the data wall and tapped in without being prompted. She bypassed modern encryption like it was a child's puzzle, pulling ancient maps, weapon designs, troop placements, things no one in our age had access to. "We wrote this war," she muttered, "and they buried it under 10,000 years of lies." The scarred man, nameplate said D. Riker, spoke again. "They didn't just imprison us, they stole our bloodlines, turned Earth into a myth so they could sleep at night." One of my crew tried to step in. "We didn't know. We've been fighting back on instinct." Riker stared him down. "Then consider this your graduation." And that's when the plan changed. We weren't going to just destroy the Council anymore. We were going to dismantle them, system by system, memory by memory, until their entire reign was a footnote in our return. The old soldiers took command like they never left. We didn't argue. We couldn't. They weren't just better than us. They were us, before we were broken. The Ghost Choir integrated with them almost instantly. Their neural interfaces were older, rougher, but somehow more compatible. Maybe because the choir was based on them, on their decisions, their anger, their victories. We found an uplink to the planetary AI network, still intact, buried under Council encryption. It led to something we hadn't seen yet. The Core Vault, the AI's final directive, the place where the Council kept the true history of the galaxy. The births, the wars, the species they exterminated, the manipulations, even Earth's removal from the historical record. Riker smiled when he saw it. "Take me there," he said. "It's time to remind them who they tried to erase." The journey to the Core Vault was a bloodbath. The Council didn't take the loss of their sacred grounds lightly. They mobilized everything that remained: security drones, sentient tanks, gravity mines, even ground troops genetically engineered for fear suppression. But none of it worked. The old soldiers fought like devils from forgotten nightmares. I watched one of them rip a grav beast apart with a pulse bayonet, screaming war cries in a language we no longer spoke. Another soldier reprogrammed a tank mid-battle, turning it on its own infantry. We weren't just fighting for victory now. We were recovering our birthright. When we reached the vault, the defense systems recognized Riker's DNA. The doors opened, and what we saw inside rewrote everything. There were children, dozens of them, asleep in stasis. Human children, Generation 0, the firstborn of the Helix Project. Perfect genetics, clean memory cores, never awoken, preserved like museum relics, catalogued as unstable specimens. They weren't unstable. They were dangerous, too dangerous to raise, too dangerous to kill. Riker stepped towards the central console and opened a feed to the entire Galactic Council. Public. Unencrypted. Every system across their empire could see him. He said only this: "We were your creators. You made us monsters, and we became gods. Now we're awake, and we're coming home." Then he looked at me. "Burn the files. Let them see what you buried." I uploaded the Core Vault's entire database, every erased war, every purged species, every manipulated civilization. The truth spread like wildfire through the stars. The Council tried to stop it, but it was too late. The galaxy saw Earth not as a savage backwater, but as the cradle of galactic domination. And the gods they thought they buried were coming back to collect. The galaxy burned with memory. Once the core vault files hit the open net, there was no putting the fire out. Every colony, every system, every client species the Council ever enslaved or manipulated, they all saw the truth. The Highborn were not peacekeepers. They were thieves, executioners, historians of lies. And Earth? We were the broken origin, the erased empire, the species they feared most. Riots erupted across 4 sectors within hours. Entire planets blacked out Council comms and declared independence. One by one, systems tore down their orbital monitors, pulled Council emblems from their government halls, and broadcast a single message. We know what you did. In the Council's inner circle, panic reigned. They initiated something called Protocol Sigma Void, an emergency lockdown order meant for full species suppression. It gave their overseers the authority to sterilize rebellious planets under the banner of containment. They'd used it before, dozens of times, but never on a galaxy that had just discovered its chains. We intercepted a fleet preparing to cleanse the Vantari system. One of their most loyal territories turned insurgent overnight. Their ships were massive, old war barges from before the Council claimed to abolish weapons of mass extinction. Riker stood at the front of the command deck, watching the tactical display. They're going to make examples, he said, the same way they did with us. He turned to me. We're not going to let them. The Dauntless, reforged and bristling with borrowed and ancient tech, jumped ahead of the fleet. We didn't come alone. A dozen rogue systems answered Earth's call, sending ships with mismatched armor, half-scrapped fighters, outdated nukes taped to salvage rails. They didn't care. They weren't here to win. They were here to stand. The battle over Vantari was chaos. Council drones moved like ghosts, immune to basic targeting. Their AI cannons predicted our jumps before we made them. They weren't fighting to win territory. They were fighting to erase belief. So we changed tactics. One of the old Helix veterans, Alec, a rail-thin man with sunken eyes and hands that shook when idle, activated something ancient, buried deep in the Dauntless's neural core. It was labeled the Lazarus Drive. We had no idea what it did. He just smiled and said, "Let's make them bleed in slow motion." He flipped the switch, and time around the Council fleet began to warp. Literally. The Lazarus Drive created a chronosync bubble, slowing enemy reaction time by 20 to 30 seconds inside a defined radius. Their fastest fighters moved like sludge. Their missiles stalled mid-arc. Their dreadnoughts crawled like they were dragging history behind them. We slaughtered them. Every hit was a lesson. Every kill was personal. We didn't just destroy ships, we boarded them, tore down their AI cores, broadcast their failure back to the Council in real time. And then we left one survivor from each ship. We sent them back to the Council's throne world with the same message etched into their skin. Earth remembers. But this wasn't just war now. It was revolution. Entire species began sending transmissions to Earth. Some had never dared speak their native language on open channels. Others revealed cultural relics the Council had ordered burned. They didn't want protection. They wanted revenge. And Earth? Earth gave them the path. Riker assembled what remained of the old Helix Command. 50 men and women thawed from the frost, each with the mind of a strategist and the soul of a predator. They didn't argue. They aligned, like they'd been born for this moment. Their new plan was simple: collapse the Council from within. But to do that, we had to go back to where it all began. Not Earth, the Ark. A massive Council archive station, hidden inside the collapsed folds of Sector Zero, outside all known space, wrapped in artificial black holes. Legend said it held the original designs of the Helix project, the DNA maps of the erased species, and worst of all, the names of the traitors who sold Earth out in the first place. I remember standing with Riker on the Dauntless's bridge as the stars twisted ahead of us. He looked at me, tired, but smiling. "You still think we're just trying to survive?" I shook my head. "Number, we're rebuilding the empire they were too afraid to finish." He nodded. "Damn right." The stars folded. The Ark awaited. And somewhere inside that darkness was the truth that started the war long before we were born. The Ark was no myth. It hung in the dead center of a starless sector, silent, hidden behind layers of collapsed time and artificial gravity wells. The Council had sealed it away like a cursed tomb, not guarded, not patrolled, just erased. That told us everything. Whatever was inside, even the Council feared it. The Dauntless cracked through the folds using coordinates embedded in Riker's neural link, a failsafe he'd carried for over 1,000 years without knowing it. The closer we got, the more the ship groaned like it was fighting something bigger than space. And when we finally saw it, I'll never forget that sight. It wasn't a station, it was a wound, a black monolith suspended in broken time, torn open in places like someone had tried to rip their way out from the inside. No lights, no signals, just a heartbeat. Yes, a literal heartbeat. Slow, steady, deep enough to rattle our bones. Helix didn't want to dock. It wanted to wake it up. Riker ordered a full boarding crew. He didn't ask for volunteers. No one needed to. This was it. The final origin. The beginning of the betrayal. We breached through a decayed access ring. The corridors were ancient, lined with carbon-scored steel and forgotten architecture. Some walls pulsed faintly with bioluminescent veins, reacting to our presence. It wasn't just a station, it was alive. And it remembered us. Doors opened before we could hack them. Security systems ignored our intrusion. The Ark wanted us back inside, which meant it still obeyed us. Inside the central vault, we found what the Council never wanted the galaxy to see. The original Helix Manifest. Over 300,000 names, soldiers, scientists, strategists, rebels, all human, all listed as terminated after the Red Exodus. But Riker wasn't on the list. None of the soldiers we'd thawed were. That's when it hit me. "These aren't the ones who were frozen," I said. "These are the ones who were betrayed." Riker found the final document, sealed behind 10 layers of DNA access, locked to only one person in history. His name wasn't Riker. It was Commander D. Hale, the man who led the final strike during the Helix Rebellion, the one who allegedly turned against Earth. He opened the file with a shaking hand, and we watched. Footage from 2329, a council chamber, 12 silhouettes, cloaked and distorted. One human stood in chains at the center, General Marcus Verin, Earth's highest-ranking war hero at the time. He was pleading. "You promised us autonomy. You promised peace." A voice responded, cold, sharp. "You were never meant to leave Earth." And then came the order. General Verin was executed on the spot. Earth's rebellion hadn't been an uprising. It had been a response to betrayal. A secret deal had been made. Certain humans, elite scientists and politicians had traded away Earth's freedom in exchange for power. They'd joined the Council. They'd helped suppress the Helix program. They erased Earth's legacy so they could rule under another name. And we found them. Names scrubbed from all public record. Faces reconstructed. New identities. They were still alive, still sitting on the Council's ruling body. Riker dropped to his knees, fists clenched. "They weren't aliens, they were us," he whispered. "The Council didn't enslave us. Our own kind sold us out." It shattered everything we thought we knew. We weren't just fighting some distant alien empire. We were hunting traitors who wore human skin. I looked at Riker. "What do we do?" He stood, eyes burning with something deeper than rage. Clarity. "We finish what the rebellion started," he said. "We don't just burn the council. We erase every last one of them who forgot where they came from." And with that, we turned the Ark's transmission beacon back on. For the first time in 700 years, Earth's true signal echoed through the galaxy. And those traitors, they heard it. We came back with no banners, no negotiations, no warning, just vengeance. The Council's throne world, once a beacon of order, now stood cracked from its own lies. Rebellions had torn across its outer districts, monuments toppled, palaces burned. But the core spire still stood, untouched, impenetrable, guarded by fleets that hadn't moved in 1,000 years. That changed when we arrived. The Dauntless jumped in first, flanked by the full, restored Earth fleet. 12 dreadnoughts, hundreds of retrofitted rogue ships. Behind them, the Ark drifted like a black crown, its pulse now synced with ours. The Council had gathered its remaining loyal forces. They arrayed their golden ships in concentric rings, weapons primed, silent. At their center floated the Judiciary Corps, the spire-shaped flagship housing the 12 ruling members. 3 of them were human, the traitors. We knew their names now, their histories, their faces. They hadn't aged. Council tech had preserved them, perfect and polished. Humanity's greatest cowards frozen in time. But we didn't come to argue. We opened a wideband channel. Riker stood at the helm, armor scorched, voice steady. "We are the sons of silence, the children of betrayal, the ones you tried to erase. You used our blood to build your empire." He paused, then added, "We are here to take it back." The Council replied, not with words, but fire. Their entire front line launched at once. Energy beams, plasma storms, time-piercing lances designed to erase ships from existence. They hit empty space. The Ark had bent time again. We moved between seconds, and we fired back. The Dauntless unleashed its full helix payload. Rail cannons powered by twin neutronium cores cracked enemy shields like eggshells. Rebel cruisers swarmed the outer ring, disabling propulsion grids and detonating reactor cores. One by one, the Council's proud fleet disintegrated under the fury of their forgotten creators. But the real fight wasn't in space. It was inside the Judiciary Corps. We boarded it. Riker led the strike team, myself, Cole, Alec, and 3 of the revived Helix commanders. We carved through the spire's defenses like a scalpel, old maps from the Ark guiding our every step. In the heart of the throne room, we found them. 12 thrones, 9 occupied by alien tyrants, trembling behind neural shields, 3 occupied by us, traitors who once called Earth home. They didn't rise, didn't beg, just stared at us like they couldn't believe we existed. Riker said nothing. He just drew his blade, an old plasma-forged short saber from Earth's early orbital wars, and placed it against the first traitor's throat. The man coughed, then smiled. "You think this changes anything?" Riker's voice was ice. "Number this ends everything." And he cut him down. We executed the other 2, not with ceremony, not with pride, with necessity. The rest of the Council fell silent. No resistance, no final pleas. They knew their time was over. We walked out, broadcasting their deaths live across the galactic grid. And the signal was clear. The Council has fallen. Earth has returned. History begins again. In the aftermath, the galaxy didn't erupt in celebration. It sat in silence, watching, unsure, afraid. But then came the response. One by one, systems sent their allegiance. Not out of fear, but out of remembrance. They had seen what we were, what we endured, what we reclaimed, and what we would never allow again. Riker stood on the rebuilt Dauntless Bridge, overlooking the stars. His eyes weren't proud. They were tired. "We won," I said. He nodded slowly. "No," he replied. We remembered. He turned toward the Ark drifting nearby, its light pulsing like a heartbeat reborn. Now we rebuild it right. And that was the truth. This wasn't a victory march. It was a reckoning. A new galactic era, founded not on order, but on truth sharpened by blood. And this time, Earth wasn't a memory. It was the warning.